It's my honor to now request the eminent statesman, distinguished personality, a man of noble spirit and humanitarian principles to address the gathering. His Excellency, the Vice President of India, Shri Hamid Ansari, to do the honors, please.
Honorable Justice K.G. Balakrishnan, Dr. Adish Agarwal, Honorable Justice Sirputkar, Sir James Mankham, Sir Justice Mark Potter, Shri Ruala, distinguished guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to inaugurate this conference of jurists on international terrorism and human rights. You have a packed schedule of wide-ranging deliberations on key issues that impact critically on our daily lives. I commend this distinguished audience of jurists, academics, and legal experts who have gathered here today to discuss these themes. It is also topical to discuss human rights, yesterday being the Human Rights Day. It was on this day in 1948 that the UN General Assembly adopted and proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It remains the universal and fundamental recognition of the fact that the inherent dignity and the equality of inalienable rights of all members of the human family are the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. It is also appropriate that this year, the Human Rights Day is dedicated to the human rights defenders who play a vital role in protecting human rights of others, facing personal risks to them and their families. It is perhaps a statement of our times that all nations and people have been affected by the global menace of terrorism. It is not only an insult and it is not only an assault on human decency and a negation of fundamental human rights, but also knows no boundaries and poses serious threats to human rights. Terrorism has also come to represent a threat to international peace and security, especially when terrorists are armed, financed, and backed directly or indirectly by governments or their agencies. International terrorism is an international crime threatening the integrity and the political and social fabric of states. Its sinister element is vastly magnified in its impact when it is enmeshed with drug trafficking, arms proliferation, international financial crimes, and generic forms of extremism, fundamentalism, separatism, and intolerance. Our globalized world is characterized by enhanced levels of resort to violence by state and non-state actors within and across borders. Global threats to peace and security necessitate coordinated and global responses. We therefore believe that the adoption of a comprehensive convention against international terrorism would provide a solid legal basis for the fight against terrorism. However, we must also note that legal systems in many countries have resorted to doctrines of necessity to incorporate exceptional and extraordinary legislation to deal with this surge of violence. The challenge for governments and legal systems is to deal effectively with violence within the framework of normal laws and respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one other important aspect relating to the subject matter of this conference. The enjoyment of human rights is closely related to the prevalence of good governance norms. In India, we remain committed to democratic governance, inclusive development, and the implementation of the rule of law. This commitment has been challenged in practice by departures from good governance manifest through corruption and the deleterious influence of money power. Corruption has inhibited the enjoyment of human rights, has contributed to inequalities in income, status, and opportunities, and thus thwarted human development of our citizens. We must recognize that good governance without any trace of corruption is also a human right. Friends, human rights today are increasingly discussed in the context of violence, use of force, and terrorism. The idea that the central objective of human rights is to empower people through human development does not find adequate mention in contemporary debates. It is only when the capacities of citizens are fully developed, their choices widened, and freedoms expanded that human rights would have achieved their objective. I thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me to this function, and I wish you all success in your deliberations. Jai Hind.
We thank you, sir, for the successful initiation of this program, so essential for our nation's health. Our heartfelt gratitude for the eloquent address and guidance. Honorable Vice President had to leave due to some urgency.